And I want to be thankful unto the Most High, Mother, Father, Creator of the universe. Kudzai, Muzeo Mokolo. Give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahondie, African power and African liberation for all African people. Welcome back to another edition of the Pan-African Question, where we answer questions pertaining to Pan-Africanism in very short and concise ways, manners, and expressions. Giving thanks for all those who have commented and shared and liked in the last few videos, particularly pertaining to why don't Pan-Africanists go to the African continent. I hope you see where I was going with that one, and stay tuned here because we're not done with that subject yet. You know, we're coming back for it, but we had to take a little break because, you know, we've been doing, you're doing something for a couple of weeks, take a break and come back to it. But the next time I touch it, yeah, it's already being prepared, all right? All I'm going to be doing is detailing Africans who are currently on the continent, who have returned from the diaspora to the continent, and what they are doing, yeah, just to demonstrate, you know, Wagwan right now. If you have a Pan-African question, just post it in the comment section below, and I look forward to coming through and answering it at some point in the future. As you can see, the question for today, very simple one. Why do you spell Africa with a K? Many people have asked this question because it's a trend, yeah, among certain schools of Pan-Africanism and African-centered thought, you know what I mean? And sometimes, which I don't understand, yeah, but sometimes people get really disgruntled, yeah? They feel like personally affronted when people use the K rather than the C to spell the word Africa, yeah? So, you know, I just felt like it was, you know, one of them issue that we can just delve in very, very quickly and explain it very, very quickly. And for people like myself, because I grew up in a Pan-African tradition that used the word K, it's actually more instinctual for me to spell Africa with a K than with a C. Like, if I spell it with a C, I've actually thought about it, you know what I mean? So let's go into it right about now. First up, we're going to start with the work of a Baba by the name of Haki Madhubuti, yeah? He is a writer, a publisher within the Black nationalist Pan-Africanist community in the United States of America, founder of Third World Press, yeah? And the author of a number of books, in one entitled Black Man, Single, Obsolete and Dangerous. Another, Enemies, the Clash of Races, and From Plan to Planet, Life Studies, the Need for African Minds and Institutions. I happen to have the latter book. In fact, I have all of the books that I've mentioned, but this is the book that is of importance to today's question because he gives an explanation as to why the K is used in this book. Let me just check when the book was published so people will know. The book was published in 1973. Yeah, and this is the 10th printing that was published in 1992, but it's originally published in 1973. And so I'm letting you know that because, you know, to give you an idea of how long this particular tradition has been around. It goes back to around the early 1970s, from my understanding. So, in the book, Baba Haki Madhubuti gives four primary explanations as to why the K spelling is used. The first explanation is, most vernacular or traditional languages on the continent spell Africa with a K. Therefore, the use of K is germane to us. So, I have some experiences with some African languages. I'm learning to speak Twi, for example, and the alphabet in Twi goes A, B, D, I, E, F, G, H, I, K. Yeah, that K is the K and represents the K sound, yeah, within the Twi language, okay? So you can see A, B, D, I. There is no C, yeah, in the Twi language. The same goes for the Yoruba language, which goes, and I'm less versed in this one, but let's go. A, B, D, E, E, Fi, Gi, B, Hi, I, G, Ki. Yeah, I believe I got that correct, yeah? And that Ki is also the K sound and represents, sorry, the K, the letter K, and represents the K sound in the Yoruba alphabet. In Kiswahili, you have A, B, Che, yeah? And so the Che is the equivalent of the C, but the C in the Kiswahili alphabet is always accompanied by the C, the H. So there is no C representing the K sound. There is CH representing the Ch sound. Later on in the alphabet, you get the letter K representing the K sound. And then in isiZulu, the Zulu language, yeah, you'll find the letter C, but the letter C represents the one of the clicking sounds, like that one. I think it's that one anyway. If you speak Zulu, please correct me. Yeah, the sound is the C in isiZulu, and then later on in the alphabet you get the K sound represented by the letter K, and that tends to be the pattern for most of the African languages that I have come across. But with Anglicization, even when Africans use the K to represent the sound K within the language, still when they're spelling Africa, they spell it with the letter C, all right, because they're using an English spelling, which leads us to the next point from Baba Haki Madhubuti. Europeans, particularly the Portuguese and the British, polluted our languages by substituting C whenever they saw K or heard the K sound, as in Congo and Congo, Accra and Accra, Conakry and Conakry, by substituting Q wherever they saw KW. Also have some experience of this, yeah? So being an African from the beautiful island of Jamaica, coming through my father's line and through Antigua on the mother's line, yeah? We understand that because we have African retentions in terms of language and culture and spirituality, there are some signs and symbols of this. For example, yeah, the name Kweku, yeah, or Kwaku, yeah, in the Akan or Chi language, all right, is spelled KWAKU, yeah. But when you see that same name to describe people in the Americas, in the Caribbean, especially when it's pertaining to the so-called Maroons, you will see it spelled QUACO, yeah, or U, all right? The name Kwao, which is one of the names that has been retained in the Americas, when it's spelled in the Akan language, it's spelled KWAW, right? If you see that spelled by the British, yeah, describing Africans in the diaspora, you're going to see it spelled QUAO or QUAOU, and a couple other variations. So we have some live examples of that reality. Baba Haki Madhubuti continues, we are not certain of the origin of the name Africa, but we are sure that the name spelled with the C came into use when Africans were dispersed over the world. Therefore, the K symbolizes our coming back together. Yeah, so again, it's a process. There's an evolution, and certain trends and signs and symbols are being used to reflect an understanding at this particular dispensation of time. It is a fact that the popular C spelling comes into being with the dominance of the English and the British in terms of world and global politics, and that domination comes within the context of the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved Africans. And so because of the Pan-African ideal, which is about bringing us together as a people and bringing us back together even though we had been separated, we find various different ways of expressing that. Yeah, and spelling Africa with a K, based upon that understanding of the history, is just one such means of expressing and giving expression to that idea, even just through how we write the word Africa, and as a place, and the identity African, yeah, in terms of relating to Africans around the diaspora. So there's no longer, when we say Africa, we've spelled with the letter C, people like to just pertain it to Africans on the continent. When we say Africa with the letter K, we understand that we mean Africans on the continent and in the diaspora. Thirdly, Baba Hakim Adébótì continues, the K symbolizes to us a kind of lingua africana, coming into use along with such words and phrases as habarigani, osajefo, uhuru, asante, together with constituting one political language, although coming from more than one African language. Yeah, so we're seeing this is the development of the previous point. All right, because of the fact that there is a global revolutionary pan-African African-centered movement, again, you get trends, signs, symbols, language, is used that is particular to that movement or has a particular understanding within that movement. For example, he mentions here Osajefo. Osajefo is an indigenous title within the Akan nation, It's a title given to certain particular people, especially in the arena of war and warriors. But it's also the title that was given to the Osajefo, Kwame Nkrumah, for his works and his mission in terms of the independence of Ghana, which he said was meaningless without the total liberation of the African continent. All right, so the title Osajefo takes on a particular significance within the Pan-African tradition as well as within the language of Tree and the Akan communal social order, if that makes sense. Uhuru is another word. Uhuru in Kiswahili means freedom, but because of the fact that the word Uhuru was popularized within the global African community because of its usage among African freedom fighters who spoke Kiswahili, for example, the so-called Mau Mau, the Kenya Land and Freedom Army in Kenya, popularized the term Uhuru, and so Uhuru has a connotation, that goes beyond just its literal use within the Kiswahili language. And so, because of that, especially because of the fact that as Africans in the diaspora, we literally do come. We are literally a composite of Africans who's from different communities and social orders who spoke different languages. And so we use terminologies, from those different languages to give expression to our political ideas, our political principles, and our communal structures that are in development. So the K comes in that context. It's identifying the African who spells Africa with a K is coming from a particular kind of consciousness within his or her understanding of what it means, to be African and what their relationship with other Africans is and should be. Finally, and probably most importantly, Baba Hakim Adébótì concludes, as long as African languages are translated, written into English, etc., the European alphabet will be used. This is the problem. The letter K, as with the letter C, is part of that alphabet and at some point must be totally discontinued and the original name of Africa used. The fact that the Boers, peasants in Azania, South Africa, also use the K, as in Afrikaan, to represent the hard C sound, demonstrates one of the confinements of the alphabet. So again, we can see that this is a process, not an event. Because we spell Africa with the letter K, it doesn't mean that we're married to it forever and ever, Amin Ra, for all times, so shall it be. We are using particular signs and symbols that have relevance in a particular time that suit a particular purpose, whilst evolving to a different point through time and collective evolution. The word Azania that you see represented here is a terminology that was popularized by the Pan-African Congress of Azania, freedom fighters in Southern Africa who were saying discard this colonial name, South Africa, and drew on the name Azania, which had some historical foundation as the proper as a proper indigenous and revolutionary name for South Africa, Azania. All right, and so this process we can see was taking place all over the African world. Some today might disagree with Baba Hakim Adabuti that the alphabet that we currently use, is in fact a European alphabet. There are those that argue that there is no such thing as a European alphabet because the Latin script was derived from the Greek script, and the Greek script was derived from the scripts that came out of the Nile Valley. So there is no European script. But the point here is that one, we can see that the intention is to evolve, and two, there comes a point at which the C versus K is irrelevant. We have to develop our own understanding of who we are, what our land is, and what names we should use to describe ourselves indigenously, and evolve that based upon that own intentionality. There may not be, right, an original name for the African continent. And if there is, we may never know what it is. But what's most important is the people's understanding of themselves, or our understanding of ourselves. And through that, we will find terminology to represent in noun form who we are referring to as time evolves, and as the movement evolves, as our understanding of language evolves. There are many suggestions, in terms of renaming the African continent according to our own indigenous languages. Some even suggest that the entire continent and people can be referred to under the title of Azania. And there are other suggestions out there. Another subject for another time. The point is that nobody is romanticizing the word Africa forever and ever, Amen Ra, for all time, so shall it be. It is understood within a particular context. What is most important is the substance, the meaning behind the word, and what we are referring to, and developing that concept and those people, and the language will develop accordingly. This is important because we understand also that as an evolving and developing set of ideas, goals, or ideology, depending on how you see Pan-Africanism, it is understood, that there are limitations based upon our current understanding and development of our people at this particular moment in time. But we don't allow those limitations to become an insurmountable hindrance. We chart the evolution and we go on that journey, and we'll get to where we get to in due course, based upon the ultimate goal, the liberation of Africa and all African people under and within our own self-defined and self-determined Ubuntu, Hunhu, Ma'at, social world global order. That's what I got for this edition of the Pan-African Question. Thank you for watching. Do leave your comments, ideas, additions to the information, rebuttals, challenges, and agreements in the comment section below. And little more from that. If you have a Pan-African question of your own that you think needs to be answered, drop it in the comment section, and I'll do my best to come to it in the not too distant future. Once again, Tendai Mwali, be thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzai, Mudzimu, Mokuro, give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodie, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.